1, 2, 3, 4.
He's no one, she's no one, we're no one anymore.
Check. 3, 2, 1. Episode 1, year 1.
Episode 1.
This is the first one we've
Wow.
ever done. So it's
So
like
it's just going to get better from here is what you're saying.
you're our test dummy. Like,
Sick.
like, hey, I'll just get my friends in here. We'll just try it out on them, and they won't get mad at me. It'll be fine. Yes. So welcome to Portland, the Nemo podcast. We're going to talk today about what you're doing in Portland.
Wow. Okay. Well, thanks for having me. Does this have like a catchy name yet? You got to come up with a name, Trev.
What would you call it? Give me a
I
name.
don't know.
It's wide open. There is no wrong answers right now.
I'll think of something. You're going to give
You're
me
good
a
at the
minute.
words, so
I
I'm not
know.
even going
I'm
to
gonna
hesitate that it would be
weave
fun.
something together. Yeah, it's fun. I went up to Mount Hood for a couple days. It's been a long time since I've been here. And just snowboarding, because everything that's old is now new and cool. So I guess that goes for like aging snowboard pros.
Yeah, that was fun. So again, we can kind of tap that a little bit because it was like talking about this Morrow snowboard graphic that you were sporting yesterday. Got a lot of good vibes up there.
Yeah, I mean, like, look, the history within this Nemo building started at Morrow, pretty much, and Jeff Bartell and myself and multitude of others, looping Scott Klum back into this and yourself and making snowboard graphics starting in 1994. So the first board that I made, that had my name on it was 30 years ago. I got that dinosaur graphic. Bartell worked on it along with Scott Klum. And it was a drawing that I did, and it got turned into a board. And I kind of talked to some people because I knew K2 owned the marks for it. And I'm like, it'd be great. Like, anyone could reissue the board, right? Like, you could redo the graphics with anybody, but I didn't want to do it with just anybody. I was like, K2's sitting on this intellectual property. I only want to do it if it's Morrow. That's the only way it even makes sense to me. So yeah, took some finessing and like a lot of used car salesman talk, and boom, it's happening. It's going to drop. The pre-orders drop in July. This July. Yeah.
Congrats.
I know. I can't believe it. I'm still like, I look down at that board that I'm riding now.
Yep.
And I still can't believe it happened.
So we'll pop a picture right here, and you can take a look at it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
that's the board.
that's
Right there.
It's a good one.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, I don't know. I feel like snowboarding, with the way there was so much personality weaved into what the graphics were back in the 90s and even into the early 2000s.
Yep.
It was just part of the sport. It was very much like, the people's personalities were popping on the top sheets or on the bases, and there were so many iconic boards that have been done over the years, and it's lost. A lot of it's like really generic, focus group, vanilla. How do we stack them deep and sell them cheap? And it's kind of changing now. So I just hope that more people take some chances and use some bright colors and, have some fun with it.
Well, that brings up the opportunity to talk about if you could do a board graphic right now with your name on it.
Any licensee?
Everything goes. You can do whatever you want.
Anything goes.
What would it look like?
That's interesting. I think that, obviously, just based on the Star Wars stuff, I would 100% love to like legitimately collaborate with Lucasfilm on a board graphic. Like, I would really, really, really like to do that. And I know like a couple years ago, DC got the license. I mean, everyone's gone through the Lucasfilm license. It's like it started like Capito was one of the first people that actually had the license to use Star Wars characters. Jason Brown and Blue and those guys in the very beginning got the license to use them. This is like pre anything. And as we've gone through, there's been some iterations of like, it's always like the low-hanging fruit, though. It's always like, we're going to throw Darth Vader on the board. We're going to throw Boba Fett on the board. Now, those are cool,
Can't go wrong.
but I would go deep, like kind of like Jeff Bartell. Like, it's like, that's where my mind goes to the old concept drawings and the stuff that really grabbed my attention as a kid. So, like, if you're a fan,
Oh, I see.
you really know what's going on there. But it just looks cool to, you know, the average person. Like, it would appeal, it would have curb appeal, but then when you look deeper into it, you would know that this person, they know their shit about this.
If you know, you know.
If you know, you know.
That's the game.
That's the game. But yeah, I think something like that. You know, it's graphics. I think that graphics, especially if you're going to have your signature on something, it needs to reflect who you are as a person.
So what colors would you pick?
Bright colors always. My tendency with like what I really like for board graphics, I like the base to pop. It needs to be bright. It needs to, you know, be able to be seen in photos. But I want the top sheet to be more subdued. I don't like a lot of stuff going on when I look down, because I'm, you know, I've always been like a kind of like a almost like a Scandinavian aesthetic of snowboards. It's like minimalistic, but like stylishly minimalistic.
Okay.
And that's kind of how I like my top sheet. More plain colors. You can add some pop in there. I like the spot varnishes where you do either a matte flash or a gloss flash over things, where the graphics are when you tilt the board, the light catches it and you can actually see it. I like that stuff. Textures, you know, that kind of thing. Plain, but like kind of textured.
We'll see where this goes next.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get a call down to Lucas and
Probably not.
Hook us up.
Yeah,
Come
we'll
on.
see. I don't know if Morrow's going to have the budget to pay Lucas what they
It's
want
even
for
Disney now, right?
Yeah, the mouse doesn't screw around with licensee
No.
dollars. No way.
I remember we were at Morrow. I was looking at the brand book that they had. Literally, the thing was like this thick
For Disney.
for Disney.
Yeah.
And it was like, here's what you can and can't do with all the characters, and it was off the hook.
It's no joke.
And then there was the brand police that were, you know, poo-pooing fun the whole way down. But yeah,
But
It was
we've
tough.
done some, like, I was lucky enough to do some collaborations with Nixon on a bunch of the Star Wars watches. I was like the resident
Oh, yeah.
up the street Star Wars expert, and they would call me in to talk about stuff. And we actually did. They had a watch called the Dork, which was like, it would basically, you would push the button and it would tell you the time.
Yep.
It would, you know, do all these little fun sayings, and we recorded all of this audio as if like two stormtroopers talking in an elevator. And it was like, yeah, I smell like a Wookiee, or like, who was that girl you hooked up with last night? Yeah, she had like so many tentacles. Like, it was like that kind of stuff. And it was so funny. It was so funny. And it was all about like stormtroopers having crappy aim, and like, you know, like the Emperor is in the building. It was kind of like how like that Robot Chicken went and kind of like, you know, took the piss out of like Star Wars. We did that with all this recorded audio, and we thought it was going to be a hit. Lucasfilm loved it, but they were so along the lines of, this has to be canon within our universe. There's no varying.
Ooh,
So it was like,
talk about brand.
yeah, we got a little bit neutered on that project, but I have all the raw audio from it, and it's so funny. I hope, like, it'd be so cool to be able to download that into the watch, because that stuff was seriously hilarious.
Yeah, like make the watch have the technology where you can just upload it from the.
Yeah, I think that'd be
interwebs
cool.
and-
Like, you could make your own dork watch that just says whatever you want. I guess your phone does that now.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know.
That's true.
Yeah.
Huh. I got a question for you too. Again,
Go ahead.
back in the Morrow days, it's like, in the foundation days, it's like we came up from, you were on the Sims team,
Yeah.
right? And then Brad Stewart said, "Hey, I got this harebrained idea.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going north with our junior champion Rob Morrow, and we're going to start this brand." What was that conversation like?
Well, it was crazy because first of all, to get on Sims at that point, or to actually have like a snowboard sponsor that you dreamed about having. And that's what it was like when I first got on Sims, and Sims started to pay for my travel, and I'm traveling the world with, like, you know, I'm staying in a condo with Sean Palmer and Chris Roach and Kidwell and like all this stuff. It was like the craziest pinch me moments were occurring.
Yep.
And then like the brand imploded because Sims and Sims Vision, like these two different brands that kind of like, they split.
Brad Dorfman.
Stewart, Brad Dorfman and Tom Sims split apart. Brad Stewart was like, I'm out of here. I'm starting this thing with Rob. So I had just got my dream sponsor, and then I get this phone call and saying it's falling apart, but come with me.
Yeah.
Noah Brandon, myself, Tucker Franzen, and Shannon Dunn also, pretty early on, but she wasn't a part of it straight away.
Mm-hmm.
But it was it was like this opportunity to create something new, and it was insane. It was just like this. We were reinventing what marketing was along with board technology simultaneously. It was a crazy time to be in snowboarding in general, because the sport was being reinvented both on the hill and off the hill every single day.
Now, this is early 90s, late 80s.
This is 1991.
Yep.
Yeah.
The heyday is about to happen.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's crazy. And then on that ride, you got to go to the Olympics.
Yeah.
And that was 1998. And you were one of the first guys on the team, and you were able to go over and represent. I got this picture here we can reference.
There it is. Yeah, 1998.
And we're in an Olympic here now going into Paris. So
it's crazy. It's a weird one for me, because I have so many feelings of like my whole Olympic experience is both amazing and really frustrating at the same time. The journey up to the Olympics was like, I was on a roll. I was like winning all these contests, like, you know, qualified for the Olympics and all this stuff. And then no one really prepares you for what, and we were the guinea pigs, right? Like no snowboarder had gone before to be like, you need to prepare yourself for this onslaught of media that's going to completely rewire your brain, the way you think about like, you know, pressure. And yeah, we just ran straight into that brick wall, and it was harsh. It was a lot for us to take. We were kind of like the sideshow. It was weird. We were like the warm-up band, you know, and everyone kind of just wanted to like watch us fail, it seemed like. And you know, we had our half pipe final in pouring rain.
Oh yeah.
Every event was canceled that day except for snowboard half pipe. It was wild. You know, it was a wild time. But I mean, fast forward to, let's say, the last Olympics that we had in Beijing, where like you're seeing the pinnacle of progression in the sport happen right in front of you, and to go from like being on the first Olympic snowboard team to having now commentated 6 Winter Olympics, it's crazy to see it from both sides of things. And yeah, it's been a very wild ride.
Well, speaking of rides too, and just progression, again, going from being the athlete on the first team and then being the NBC commentator, tell me about that journey.
It's funny because there's a lot of similarity in those two roles. I mean, obviously when you're in the start gate, it's a different kind of pressure, but I feel almost the same pressure when my responsibility is to do the sport that has given me so much right to the general public in the United States. So it's like, I got to be on point. I got to choose the right words. I'm not only speaking to the core, I'm also speaking to grandmothers in the Midwest. I've got to explain tricks. I got to break them down. If the judging sucks, I got to call it out, but I got to say why this judging sucks. Yep. There's a lot of explanation. That it's way more long form talking about snowboarding than most of us are used to doing. And it's a muscle that you have to work out and exercise and, you know, and stretch, because you see that a lot with commentators. They talk, you know, quote unquote inside baseball, where like, unless you follow the sport closely, you don't know what the hell they're talking about.
Right.
And it's like, even in figure skating, which is like arguably the #1 watched sport at the Olympics, they're not catering to the people like me who have no idea what's going on. I don't know what a sow cow is. I don't know what a Lutz is. Like, I have no idea. I have no point of reference. But for some reason, and for good reason, it falls upon myself and my co-host Todd Harris to break it down for the general public. So it's fun to do. It's very challenging, and it's like being in a contest for myself. And I perform best when I'm kind of under pressure like that.
Well, it brings me up, like, again, for our audience at Nemo Design, we've got a lot of kids in college, and they're aspiring to be the next generation of, you know, creative directors in the active lifestyle space. But there's also, when you began this, I'm sure there was an imposter syndrome of, what am I doing here? I'm a skateboard guy from Boston. Like, why am I here? Tell me about how you got over imposter syndrome.
Well, imposter syndrome, it's funny you say that, because it's like, I feel it now. Okay, like there's this new resurgence where, like, there's it came a little bit late. It was always there with surfing, always there with skateboarding, to have reverence for the people that came before you, and you put them on a pedestal. It's late with snowboarding. So like with myself, we're finally getting like a little bit of shine. And it's like we don't ride like we were in our prime. And for the most part, like kids that have snowboarded for 3 years are better than we were at our prime. So yeah, I feel imposter syndrome, but the way to get over imposter syndrome is you can only control what's going on here. Like you have your little box, right? Like your box of creativity, attitude, self-confidence, and that's you. And if you can, if you're true to that little box where you live in, you can't really have imposter syndrome. You can't control what somebody thinks. And 9 times out of 10, what that person thinks isn't even close to what you're imagining them thinking. So there's a reason why you are where you are. Like, no one is really getting plucked and put in the design space. Mm-hmm. It's so competitive that mm-hmm. if you're in that program at school and you got into that highly competitive program, you had to earn that. You had to get your butt there. So you just have to think about that and think about, okay, I've got to keep re-upping, to make sure that I can rise to be the best person that you can be, the best designer, the best whatever. But you can ultimately only control what happens in this little creative box, which is you. But you were chosen. Your box was chosen to be in this bigger box of people that all have talent. So just have confidence in that you shined enough to be in this space to be chosen. Does that make sense? I talked all the boxes a lot right there.
It did. There's lots of boxes. But again, there's that kind of leads into the other part of our world too, is creativity. Mm-hmm. And I think there's such a connection between especially action sports and creativity. And what's interesting is you watch somebody like Spike Jonze, who's skater BMX guy that has his accolades in the mainstream as a director that you want to pay attention to, and made some really great movies on the mainstream stage. But can you kind of connect the dots between, let's say, this athletic sport in action sports, as well as what our world in Nemo Design is about, is just good creative.
Well, let's look at it for where it is now. Okay, like we're talking about when Spike Jonze came up. He was I think he was the photo director of like Homeboy magazine. He was taking photos of skaters and BMXers, and at that point in time, skaters and BMXers, to even do those sports, you were coming up like literally being spit on and yelled at by quote unquote jocks on a daily basis. So your spine was thick, and you had to think outside the box, not only in just in order to even do the things you wanted to do, because you had to like build ramps. No one wanted you to build ramps. You were doing these sports that no one wanted you to do. You were like jumping fences, to even like the amount of effort it took to actually do the activity you loved. I feel like that directly influenced the creative and what came out of people. And it's funny because you think about design schools now, and like it's very formulaic. Mm-hmm. It's very formulaic in like, okay, well this is what edgy design is. If you follow these parameters, you are now an edgy designer. And it's just like, I feel like there are certain places that I definitely think help to nurture that the raw, like a Waldorf school or something that doesn't have the same kind of rigid color in the lines style of an art program. Mm-hmm. Because that's like, it's just interesting, because to be a leader in design, you literally have to think outside the box, and then everyone follows you, and then you have to jump left when everyone thinks you're going to jump right in order to stay ahead of the curve. So you constantly have to be like being like a skater back in the day. You constantly have to be jumping over those walls and emptying those pools and stealing that wood because they're coming for you. The cops are coming, they're nipping right on your heels the whole time.
And it's the grit, I think, that also goes through
Yeah.
it, because I think, as we talked about imposter syndrome before, I think when you're showcasing your art for the first time, you have to be ready for criticism. And it's hard, and it takes a certain personality to kind of get past it. You could be an amazing creative, whether illustration, design, paint, whatever, but if you don't have that grit
Yeah.
to take the criticism, or even your own mind giving yourself these parameters or boundaries, that you almost self implode. You'll beat your own self up worse than the audience will.
I mean, there's two ways to look at that too. Like if you look at, I'll give you two examples that I think are like kind of maybe a little bit over the top. So you've got Glennie Friedman.
Okay.
Okay, like his photography, his iconic skateboard photography, iconic band photography. But he's like, any interview you see with Glennie Friedman is over the top. Me, I did this. You guys all suck. You guys are all lame. Like that's one avenue, or like a C.R. Stesic, like Stesik's iconic.
Yeah.
It's so much of their personality is in what their art. Like you really see that. But you can take from that is like the amount of raw confidence they have in what they've done, and if you like really wear what you've created, and you have that, that you need a bit of bravado, I think, with all art, whether that like flows over into because I truly consider like skating and snowboarding a lot more of an art form than I do a sport. The style portion of it, anyways. You have to carry that. You have to carry some kind of inner bravado in order to like have people pay attention to it. The reluctant hero often is passed over. It just seems like there's a lot of people with a ton of talent in this world, but you don't notice them because they don't really know how to just ride that fine line of, I'm going to show you enough, but I'm going to retain a bit of mystery so you don't know what I'm going to do next.
The mystery keeps everybody
does.
guessing.
I think so,
Wanting
yeah.
more.
Mm-hmm.
And you hit on the other topic too, again, is style.
Yeah.
So again, back in our snowboarder days, there was the style guide with Snowboarder magazine. And again, it's just the word, but I'm really interested in your interpretation of what that word means, and how would you represent that?
Well, when I think of style in the classic skate snowboard box that we'll put that in, it's how you're on the board, right? It's what your hands are doing, what how relaxed you look, how does your head tilt to one side, how do you flow? That's style. But in my older years, I've kind of started to think about style is how you get out of bed in the morning, how you put your shoes on, like how you roll into eating breakfast, getting in your car, what kind of car do you drive, there's so many threads that are attached to style. And is style hereditary? Do you pick up style from your mom and dad, the way they did things? I mean, and now I think it's kind of a cool time within all these action sports, because you have these generational athletes. Let's say Chris Miller, arguably one of the most stylish skateboarders that has ever walked the planet. His son, Zach Miller, has style, like incredible style of his dad, Jimmy Wilkins. His skateboarding, his mom is a ballerina, his dad is a classical musician. They're not action sports, but you see that the threads of what they brought in a person's, the way they bring that to what they do. So,
Or like Mike Vallalli's daughter. And
exactly. It's like the style, like what we consider traditional style. I think it starts when you get out of bed in the morning, and just how you dress, how everything, on so many deeper layers than just like how you do a frontside air. You know what I mean?
Yes. And I remember some of the Olympic runs that we've seen from some of our competitors in the past, and they've been called robotic. And then people are always,
But robotic is, it's funny because that's a style. It
Okay.
just may not be as visually appealing. And it's just like within design. Yes, these people are ticking the boxes of gets the job done design. It's a style.
Right.
It gets the job done. Maybe you'll get paid, but you're not like, there's no wow. There's no like, you wouldn't have someone imitating the robot or the generic. You want to be the person that leads the eye. I think that's the ultimate, like, it's, who cares if you have 1,000 tricks or a giant portfolio full of like just whatevs. I'd rather be the person that has 7 tricks that look really good, even if they're simplistic, that makes everyone stop and be like, whoa. Like that's the goal.
All right, here's a tough one. I want you to really narrow it down. Think for a second. 3 people that epitomize style, in your opinion.
3 people that epitomize style, in my opinion.
And why?
I would say, well, Mark Gonzalez. I think
I'll give you that.
I think Mark Gonzalez, he's been compared to like free-flowing jazz on a skateboard. You never know what you're going to get. And his style is so unique that it lent itself to creating new tricks based out of just his approach to rolling down the street and the way that his brain thinks. Just would like, he changed the direction of skateboarding, like completely changed the direction of skateboarding. So I think Gons is a huge one. Terry Kidwell. Terry Kidwell, I consider to be the father of what we consider modern freestyle. I feel like when snowboarding was at a point in time when everyone was just like slapping their hands on their board, Terry was holding on for the duration of the tricks. There was a lot of follow through. He looked very natural. He didn't look like he was fighting what he was doing. It just looked like it was like flowing through him. He made the difficult look incredibly easy. And he also, because of the way that he rode and because of the way that he looked at obstacles, he literally changed the face of what snowboarding would consider to be how to do it, how to make it look good. So I think Terry. And then I'm going to go with surfing, because I think that, surfing, there's so much flow and how to make surfing look good. And I'm going to say like Kelly Slater. I think that Kelly has that. He has the refined technique style. And over the years, I mean, he had a style that would win contests because he knew how to do what he needed to do within this criteria to win. But as the chains of competition have come off of him and he can do whatever the hell he wants, you realize how much more that guy had to give. Like when he does a turn on a surfboard, just one turn, you're just like, okay, I could watch that
All day.
1,000 times. And it's just like, I don't know, just being able to watch someone like Kidwell, like Gons, be in their element and look like they're supposed to be there,
I appreciate your insights, and you brought 3 males into this topic. And now I want to kind of
I
switch
see.
gears
Okay.
on you here,
All right.
because
All right.
I've been very inspired by what Caitlin's been doing in the basketball scene and just women at the X Games this week, and just riding in general. I think their game has just the style is there. They used to kind of get through the tricks,
Jana
but they're
Mayan.
doing them.
I think Jana Mayan changed the face of women's snowboarding. She was, she came along at a time when I guess it was like, good enough for a girl. And she shattered the ceiling of that. And she opened up a door for all these other women to come in and be like, if she can do it, I can do it. She inspired like this next generation, like Tora Bright, another one, tore the absolute ceiling off of what people thought was possible in a half pipe for women's snowboarding. And to be quite frank, it's like women's snowboarding right now to me is more fun to watch than the men's side of things, because every competition you're seeing leaps and bounds of progression. And it's so fun to commentate that.
Well, I think you talked yesterday too about when you're commentating, you're doing math, you're having to
Yeah.
count spins, and yet with the style that the women are putting out, it's more accessible to more people because it's attainable.
I think so, but I mean the boundaries for that are being broken as well. There's so many young women coming up in snowboarding right now that like Chloe Kim she's sitting on the throne right now. But there are a lot of people that want that throne, and they are coming quickly, and it's because of the ceiling that Chloe Kim broke. It's her fault. They're coming, and she did it. And so getting to watch the progression of that, and like you're saying, yes, it is. It is nice to, after commentating a slope style or a half pipe run, and all you're doing is talking about 1620s and 1800s, and then you get to watch the women's competition, and you're seeing slow 1080s, and it's crazy to think of like a 1080 as a smaller rotation trick these days, but
Right.
it is. And you've got like women like Jamie Anderson that make that look effortless.
I agree.
Yeah.
And speaking of women that's important in your life,
Mm-hmm.
and surfing, you proposed to your wife, Lindsay.
I do like the cheesiest. It's pretty rad when I think about it now, but like I tell people and they're like, "You did what?" So my wife and I, we actually got married in Honolulu Bay on surfboards, surrounded by Japanese sunburned snorkelers. And it was just her and I and a pastor, and we were on like a big longboard. And yeah, it's pretty funny. Like when I think about it, it's like really cool.
It's unique
Yeah,
and different.
It's pretty totally
There's some
different.
style
Totally
there.
different. Yeah,
Style points.
we had a big party, but like I feel like these days I tell my friends, I'm like, I only go to the second wedding. I don't go to the first wedding. I'm not wasting my money on the first wedding. So I'm just being straight truth, dude. Like the odds are stacked against you. But yeah, it was like we just wanted to throw a party for our friends. Wedding ceremonies are cool and all, but you're really there for the reception. That's what you're there for.
That's it.
Yeah, it's
And
raw
how many
truth.
years is that now?
20, almost 25 years.
All right, we'll give you an A for remembering.
Yeah.
The old guy. But
Well, I had to
yeah.
think. Like I have to
I
be
know, I
like,
see you thinking
yeah.
hard.
Yeah.
And what's one piece of advice that you could share with people to have a successful marriage and even relationship for that matter, right?
Say yes. Just learn how to say yes a lot more. And because like for myself, I grew up in the sports that I did, and I was an only child. It was the me show from day freaking one, dude, and like all the way up through when I was a professional. It's the me show, and then then you share a house with somebody, and you slowly have to realize that. Well, for me, it's like she's always right. She's always right. She has way better style than I do. I'm so glad that I'm not responsible for any kind of like aesthetics. She like her aesthetics are way better. She's way better at like pretty much everything. Yeah, I can fly through the air and stuff like that, and that's cool. But like, she's way better at everything than I am.
We love that. And you've got 2 kids now, and so
2 kids. I have a 23-year-old son and a daughter who will be 20 in August, and they are vastly different than my wife and I. My son, it's very funny because I think he sees mom and dad as like this we're like modern action sports hippies. We're like, you guys don't like care about anything, like we didn't have enough rules growing up, and he's going to be a lawyer. And he wants to live in Encinitas, California, where we are now, and he realizes that he is not a YouTube star and he's not a rapper, so he's not going to be able to afford to live there. So he needs to become a lawyer or something along those lines. So he's studying law. And then my daughter, who is very much a creative, she's hilarious, creative mind. She goes to University of Oregon and she's studying product design. And that's going to be really fun to see what she does with that.
and anything we do to help her out, let us know because we're right here. It's right across the street.
Don't think I'm not going to be calling you
That's
guys.
good. We
You
wanna
guys
help.
are going to be hearing from me a
We
lot.
owe you a favor. I'll pay it back.
Yeah.
But the other thing that brings up for me too, again, is like with parenting, is like how do you give guidance to your kid? You know, whether they want to have an athletic pursuit, and in your case, it's like I can't imagine trying to coach a lawyer, right? Like, how do you approach that? Because I think that's a spot where I think we all as parents can do better for society and being able to help our kids get in a better direction.
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, and I talked to you about this yesterday about how this modern generation of kids, especially mine, it's the new generation where you subtract 10 from their actual age. So like, my son is 23, so he's 13, and my daughter is about to be 20, so she's 10, and that's like, it's just society. It's just the phone. It's like social media. It's having all that information in your pocket as a distractor, and it doesn't let you, like, I think we were a lot more mentally formed when we were that age. You know, when I drove across the country with barely any money when I was 20 years old, 19 years old, driving from Massachusetts to California. There's no way. Like, I would not be confident. I mean, I would be helicoptering like real hard. So it's like, you know, it's just different. Like, society is different. It's different. The way these kids internalize things is so much different than we were when we were kids. So like, when you say like how do you basically grapple with these kids and how to mentor and how to inspire. First, I think it's really good for kids to have mentors that are outside of your family.
Sure.
Because kids don't really listen to their parents. They do when they're like 25. I think that's when you start listening to your parents. But now they don't listen. So I think it's important for these kids to have mentors that are outside of the house. But all you can do is you can share life wisdom, and you can share it over and over and over again with them, and you're going to get eye rolls for the first 98% of it, and then the 99th percent they'll be like, oh, okay. Or something will happen where you've had experience. Because I mean, look, when growing up in the 70s and 80s and 90s, we've seen some shit, and it's like, not like, I guess what I give to my kids is like, it's never as bad as you think it is, and it's not bad until it's bad. So like, just being able to kind of roll with the punches. A comment on Instagram isn't the end of it. You shouldn't put any weight into social media at all. Don't base your self-worth on a post. That's not real.
No.
This stupid thing when life ended in 2006. I think, when did the iPhone drop? 2004, 2006?
That sounds about right. Life
ended. As soon as that shit was in your hand, like, life as we knew it ended. There's going to be like a pie chart of like, or like a, what is it called? Like the graph line where like society took a shit. Is going to be like 2000, like September 10th, 2006. Like just the shit, or the downward spiral of humanity.
Yeah, that BlackBerry movie.
Yeah. Thanks, Steve Jobs, you fucking dick.
We're here as a result of that, I guess.
I guess we are. I mean,
conversations happening.
Yeah, I guess, social media has brought us here. There's some good things from it, but like, for the most part, like the face-to-face contact and learn how to write in cursive, which really is, it's a lost art.
Lost art.
Totally lost art.
Yeah.
It was funny because I had just sent out some products to a bunch of people, and I wrote the thing because I just write in cursive, because I just want to get it done. And Pat Moore yesterday hits me up. He's like, I didn't know this was from you. I'm like, what are you talking about? It's like, I couldn't read your freaking writing. I'm like, oh my God, is this really where we're at? Like, generational.
Yep.
Yeah.
You just got old.
I know. I'm old.
And how old are you today?
I am 54 years old.
I was impressed at your performance yesterday in the pipe. We
Thank
had
you.
a good session up at Mount Hood. Snow's great. Pipe was there. McTwists came out, and
it's in there. It's all muscle memory. I feel like If you've spent, it's the 10,000 hours on something,
Sure.
to become an expert at it. I mean, I would say that I've spent over 10,000 hours honing my craft to being able to snowboard. There's certain tricks that I don't think I'll ever forget how to do, as long as my physical form is able to carry the G-forces of what it takes to ride a half pipe. I think I'll be able to do those forever. But it's the mental part. It's the little devil that's on your shoulder going, "You're gonna deck. You should probably stop." And I always say, like, to push through that, it'd be great if there was some kind of sports. If I could just get hypnotized into like, you're good. You're meant to, like, your trick bag is still. I think your body still knows how to do all this stuff. I really think it. I truly think it does, because over the past year, I've spent a lot, like, since this new reissue of this Pro model, I've had this new fire lit in me that I don't want to have imposter syndrome. I want to live up to, like, being able to, like, have pride, and, like, people are like, oh yeah, okay, that guy used to be something.
You should have a Pro model.
Right. So I've been, like, trying these tricks that I used to do, and it is kind of shocking how fast they come back. And it's in there. So getting hypnotized, being like, you can do this, like, get out of your own way, because that's really what it is. You just need to get out of your own way and get into that flow state where your body just knows how to do it.
It's a beautiful thing.
It is a beautiful thing. It's a lot easier said than done, though, for sure.
We got Paxton House Pizza or Papa Gino's Pizza.
Holy shit. Paxton House of Pizza.
Why?
Because it's the pizza that I grew up on. I'm an East Coast pizza snob, like, solid East Coast pizza snob. And I feel like in Massachusetts, a lot of the pizza that I ate when I grew up was Greek pizza. And it was just a different type of sauce. It's a different type of crust. The crust is a lot flakier. You're eating a good piece of Greek pizza when it's kind of running down your arm, burning you. So, like, I feel like that, and that was a very traditional Greek pizza place I grew up around. Papa Gino's has really slid downhill from back in the day. I actually ate at Papa Gino's when I went to visit my mom a couple summers ago in Cape Cod, and it is not good.
Not like you remember.
Not like I remember.
Well, they're still in business after all those years. They must be doing something right for that community.
Dude, Little Caesars is still in business. I don't know how that's even working. I just rather eat the box.
I want to see that. All right, we got this picture.
Okay. Funky snowboards.
This is like one of the first days I shot with Todd Richards.
Yeah, I think that's the second time, because you were at the Tenny Mountain.
Oh, Tenny Mountain, that's right.
Snowboard Bash, which was the very first half pipe that was ever on the East Coast.
Right.
This would be the second half pipe that was ever on the East Coast, and that was 2 piles of snow pushed up, and it was a very, very cool time in snowboarding where, like, you didn't even know all these people snowboarded,
Right.
and they all came together, and you got to kind of, like, see who knew what they were doing and who didn't.
Yep.
This is when Jeff Brushy popped onto the scene, this little snotty-nosed kid from Vermont who didn't really talk very much, but he went absolutely huge for those times. And yeah, it was, man, we were making something out of nothing, I'll tell you that.
I just remember sitting from the sidelines and some, like, teacher-looking guy approached you about a sponsorship right there on the spot, and then you took the board and wrote it, and it's like, I was like, whoa, he just got sponsored.
So this Funky board right here, so Funky has subsequently come back in snowboarding.
What a great name, right?
It's
brand name,
It's
Funky.
insane. And, like, so it's this Italian snowboard company, and Funky is back. But I had been riding Sims boards that I had bought up until that time. And then I got this Funky board, and it weighed like 17 snowboards. It was so heavy.
Really?
So heavy. Yeah, and it was just this plank. Like, you just dropped it on the ground. It's like, dong. Like, just, yeah. But, yeah, I got a free snowboard, so I was sponsored.
You're sponsored right
Sponsed.
out the gate.
Yeah.
And the other thing that was funny when we were going, it's like, it totally makes sense for me now as, like, you're a commentator for NBC, but it's like back then, it's like your personality for me was like I could recite every movie's punchline.
Yeah, I was raised by television set. That's pretty much like both my parents were. I was kind of a latchkey kid, only child. Both parents worked, so I literally spent a lot of time in front of a television until I found a skateboard. So it was like every science fiction movie, every like I was big into monsters and sci-fi and that kind of stuff, and it really wasn't until skating came along that I threw myself in an obsessive fashion into the culture of that. I could recite thrashers from 1984 on, like just devouring every image of every snowboard magazine, who was who on the hill, like if they were pros, like what they were doing, what they were wearing, like who their friends were, what they were saying. Like it was just something to consume for me.
So it's nature, nurture, a little of both.
Yeah.
To kind of get to the seat that you're sitting in today.
I think so. I think, just with anything, you have to absolutely love it. And that doesn't mean just, the act of it. You need to be
Right.
loving every single piece of it, like down to the minute details. It was very natural. Like, I don't think there wasn't for my career kind of followed a very linear path. Like, it was a slow burn. And I think that's almost like how you can become, really good at something. Is like you don't, like the people that burn really bright, you kind of don't get the solid. It's like building a pyramid, like that solid foundation, and then building up to the shining point.
Well, that brings up the topic of legacy in general. So you're talking about slow burn, but again, what do you feel is your legacy for snowboarding?
Man, I don't know. Just like I would hope that my legacy would be to be staying true to who you are while yet trying to help the next generation realize the significance of who even came before me. That's like my life goal at this point, is to have the kids that are coming up now know who my heroes were, and in turn finding out who Terry Kidwell's hero was. Just drawing the line. Like you didn't just get to 1800s as a spin. Like there was a progressive line of why this even happened in the first place, why you're grabbing your snowboard and holding on to grabs
Behind your ankle.
Yeah, like like where you're grabbing, why you're grabbing there, like what it means to follow through on a trick, and that if you follow that line back, it's Terry Kidwell.
Yeah.
And I'm sure if you had Terry Kidwell sitting here, he would tell you who his inspiration was, that he would model his snowboard style after. And I think that if my legacy can be anything, it's to give to kids the gift of reverence for who came before you. And I think even within skating and within surfing, just know how you got here.
I felt that yesterday on the hill. A lot of the kids that were in the High Cascade Snowboard Camp were just super excited to meet you, and just I think maybe for them they kind of could see themselves maybe being in that seat someday, 40 years from now, right?
And I think that's cool. And I think it's relatively new in snowboarding.
We don't have history yet.
We don't. Well, we haven't paid it. There's history's there. We haven't paid attention to history because I feel like we've been on this like Pac-Man, just wop, 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 wop. All you want to do is eat the next thing in front of you, and like constant the sport and the culture and the commerce around snowboarding has been constantly trying to reinvent itself every sales cycle for years and years and years and years and years. And when you do things like that, everything in the rearview mirror is gone. And it's only come into the past few years, I feel like, that all of the styles from the past are coming back. All of like the trick selections are becoming a lot wider. Like we're starting to realize the contributions of people from the past, and I think we're at a spot in snowboarding where it's really cool right now, because there is that reverence for who came before. People want to know the contributions of people like Craig Kelly, or like in terms of style, like a Noah Brandon or Chris Roach. These are the people that changed the face of the sport, and it's just cool to see kids like being interested in that now.
Well, with that, you got to give me your top 10 list.
Top 10
Of
list of
snowboarders.
What? Of snowboarders?
That should be in
Top 10. Well, okay.
your top 10.
My top 10. Okay, so let's go. Craig Kelly, for sure. Terry Kidwell, Chris Roach, Noah Brandon, Jana Mayan, Barrett Christie. Let's see. Josh Dirksen, Robbie Morrow. I think Jamie Anderson, and I will say, in terms of modernness, I'll say Scotty James. And it's a very eclectic group, and the reason that I've given these names is like style and progression and what it means to progress, because you kind of can't have one without the other, I think. In order to make it count, it has to be stylish. And also people that have broken boundaries within the sport. I mean, 10 is a small list.
It is.
For who I look at and who stops me in my tracks when I see an Instagram post or when I see them in real life and I want to watch. But yeah, and then you've got people like Shaun White that has completely reinvented what we think of as a professional
Career.
like a career within snowboarding. But for me, I think the most important thing is style and progression, and making sure those two things go hand in hand. And I think that list kind of encompasses that for my personal choices.
So here's one to open it up, and this is a cliche question, but again, if you could have dinner with anybody alive or dead today, who would you have, and why?
I think it's kind of easy. I think I would want to sit down and have a couple margaritas with George Lucas.
I knew it was coming.
I know, but it's so
I set the
cliche for
softball.
me. But it's like, okay, all this shit came out of him, right? Like, I realize that it's, he took it all from the hero's journey in Kurosawa. Like he's borrowing from them, but like, you have to have a certain thing in your head to make up layers on layers on layers of lore.
Right.
And it's like, I feel like when you're kids, that's what your play is. Like when you're super in it as a kid, like you're 9-10 years old, before the 9-year change, when you are literally giving yourself over to your toys when you play with them. And there are backstories for everybody. At least this was me.
Oh yeah.
Like there was a backstory going on for every Star Wars figure that I had, and I feel like there are certain individuals within this world that have a way to consistently access that, and it's a bummer that society makes you stop being that. Like the forceful push on of society makes you stop living in that child's mind. But there are certain geniuses on this planet, and I mean Lucas is one, Frank Herbert, another one, the guy that wrote Dune. Like, dude, it's so layered upon layered upon layered, and I feel like these guys don't even, like, if like I said, like you have to get a couple margaritas in one of these guys, because I think that's when you start to peel the onion back and they start to like actually give it to you. And I feel like, a guy like George Lucas honestly doesn't even know where it comes from. But he's so confident in, like, this is the planet, this is the name, this is what their political system is, this is what their currency looks like, and they're warring with these people. It's like, that's a lot. And also, like, you're coming up with all this shit while running $1 billion game-changing, not only movie franchise, but also the technological aspect of it, and the sound, and like,
Yeah.
dude, that
Industrial
guy,
Light Magic.
he's got extra compartments in his head. Like, to hold knowledge. I can barely remember a person's name I just met. I can't, like, never mind.
All those concussions, yeah.
Yeah, seriously.
Hey, what are you working on? Right
What am I
now?
working on?
Let's
Well,
give me a
right
shout out
now,
what you're doing right now.
I guess, like, the day-to-day, I am the team manager, snow marketing manager for Quicksilver. Quicksilver Snow here in North America, which is a super fun job. I've been with Quicksilver for 20 years. I'm working on the Morrow revitalization project, which is very, very fun. And then I have a podcast called The Monday Mass, which is either Mondays or Tuesdays, and it is an action sports podcast about nothing. You tune in for the action sports. You're not going to get it, but you are going to get a lot of useless bantering between two people that seem like they should be an old married couple. And then also, yeah, I do this thing called commentating for NBC. So, yeah, that's what I'm working on. And currently working on being able to touch my toes again, because apparently you need to do that when you go snowboarding.
Yes, it was a good beater yesterday.
Oh, I
You
took some
recovered
beaters.
pretty good.
I took some beaters, yeah, for sure.
Surprised your eye isn't more swollen.
I know,
Yeah.
I know. I just had the initial impact injury, and it's kind of like faded overnight.
Yeah, you didn't get up there as quick as I thought you would. It was like, ooh.
I was like,
shit's
and I had to
over.
play it off for everyone. I didn't want everyone to be concerned that they needed to call medevac for me
Get
real
the
quick.
helicopter in here.
I'm okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's part of the DNA. Thank you.
You're very
Appreciate
welcome.
you. It's an honor.
Thank
Especially
you.
as you-
Thanks for Trevor Graves. You don't. I mean, I slob you all the time, but like you literally were the first person to point a camera at me. You've done a lot for my career. I mean, seriously, a lot for my career. So I thank you every time.
Oh, thank you.
Make sure to prop up the people that helped you out along the way. Don't forget about the people.
It is a game of who you know.
It is a game of who you know.
I'll say
Don't
it
burn
100
any
times.
bridges.
Yeah.
Because you never know who's going to be that marketing manager. And the funny thing is, and just in closing, the amount of people that I hear from that I was their coach at High Cascade
Yep.
that are now like within either this industry or they're like within like some kind of marketing group, and they're
Yep.
like, you were my coach, that was great. And I'm just
Yep.
like, wow. You know, a lot of time has passed.
Yep.
And you never know where people are gonna be. They may be responsible. You may need something from them in the future. So don't burn any bridges. Be nice to everybody. It's not that
Sounds
hard.
like you're making bridges by coaching all these young people.
Yeah,
and
I think
helping
so.
them
I
in
think
their
that's
career
it.
path.
You know, just imparting wisdom on the younger generation is all you can do. That's all you can do.
Okay, buddy.
You, Trevor Graves, ladies and gentlemen.
Todd Richards. Thanks.
That's it.
Bam.